Lately, the Dominican Republic has been hit with a series of incidents that, even to those of us who know the country well, seem serious, an indicator of something much deeper, a crack in the system. Welcome, I'm Lily. If you're new here, I'm a travel journalist, and here on Tourism Lens, I talk about ways that we can move and travel consciously around the world, including topics surrounding tourism, geopolitics, identity, and culture. So, guys, I never shy away from telling the truth about places, even places that I absolutely love, like the Dominican Republic. For those of you who don't know, I lived there for many years as a travel journalist who was on assignment and been to many parts of the country, met many people across all walks of life in the DR. I love the Dominican Republic. I've never been shy about saying that. But I also know the importance of speaking the truth about some of the issues that the country faces, and not just for people who are traveling there, moving there, but also for those who live there and for whom we really have a responsibility to speak out and share the things that are happening beneath the surface. And there is a very glossy surface. The Dominican Republic seems unstoppable. In 2024, DR welcomed more than 11 million visitors. I mean, think about it. That's the population itself, 11 million. They've been having record-breaking foreign investments in resorts, particularly from the luxury sector. And that's not to even speak of the investments in infrastructure and in the expansion of airlines. And the growth is real. I mean, the numbers only tell you one story, though. They don't show you the whole picture of what is happening on the ground in terms of the social malaise that is growing in the DR. Last Sunday, we were calling a couple friends of ours, and they were sitting on their condo balcony in Santo Domingo, and they had no electricity. And they were telling us that this has been happening for the last 2 weeks. And indeed, there have been pervasive blackouts in the last 2 weeks, all across different parts of the Dominican Republic that is affecting the local population. There have been protests related to that. People are burning tires. It's really becoming unbearable. Now, blackouts are not unusual for the DR, but this level of blackout where you have a 24-hour stretch without any lights, or, it comes back about 10 or 12 times according to some users, and it burns your appliances. And this has been going on every single day for 2 weeks in the dead heat of August and September. What's happening is that the major power plant, the country's biggest power plant, Punta Catalina, which is coal-fired and was supposed to really fix these blackout issues that the country has had for years, was built for that purpose, but it has been also mired in controversy because it's built by Odebrecht, which is the Brazilian construction giant that admitted to paying millions in bribes to land this contract under the previous government. And so Punta Catalina is kind of like this thorn on the side of the DR. The authorities are saying that what's happened is really just a perfect storm of different things. One unit was down. The next unit was being fixed when the first one went down. That one went down because of Sargassum that is affecting the plant. But a lot of folks are saying Sargassum is a seasonal issue. This happens every year. They're also saying that there's increased demand and capacity. The bigger problem really is an aging grid as well, and decades of just no maintenance, no due diligence. Every government pledges XYZ. It's just something that has been plaguing the country, and people are saying they feel like they've gone back 20 years with these blackouts. They're upset, understandably, because also they're getting these huge power bills. That was one thing that's really frustrating as well. You could be gone for the whole week traveling, not using your power, and your bill would still come for that same amount. And then there are a lot of users who don't even pay because they're siphoning somehow the electricity. Of course, you're a tourist, you probably won't know any of this. In fact, I think one of the tourism giants in the country, an entrepreneur, came out and said, tourism is fine. Nobody's being affected because these resorts have the money for huge generators. And now how fair is that that's taking place while everyone else is suffering? And this is a matter of not just convenience, it's dignity, right? It's dignity as someone to have access to these services in your country that you're being taxed for, that you're paying for. So basically, for a country that brands itself as modern and investment ready, it's very indicative of something very pervasive in the system there, which is this inability to communicate. There's no system that anyone has established to notify the population. It just reaches a point of frustration and helplessness that a lot of people feel. And, there's a video that I watched yesterday from someone who immigrated to the DR that after so many years in the DR where they really enjoyed raising their kids, they just were finally thinking of leaving. And I have seen that happen many times. After 17 years, they're like, I've had enough, and it's not to say that it's the country or the people, because people are absolutely wonderful, but it's the fact that the governance there is just lacking. There's no responsibility. No one is there to show face and to fix, and there are holes in the system. And this is just, it's systemic. Those who have the privilege of being able to leave. And now, Dominicans are speaking out. There have been protests. People are fed up. And that is matching with high costs of living, with not being able to operate your small business. And then if we think back also to a few months ago, when the tragic collapse of Jet Set nightclub went down, all of that is just indicative of a country that it has so much promise. And yet there is a fundamental lack of due diligence. And that's the real question, isn't it? How can a government attracting billions in foreign investment still fail to deliver basic services? Is it really failure, or is it by design? For those who are moving to the DR, or considering to move, or those who are visiting, right? These problems can feel very distant, unrelated. Resorts have generators, gated communities stay lit, the private clinics shield you from the worst, but most Dominicans don't live like that. They might have an inverter, for example, for the blackouts. And I remember my first apartment in Santo Domingo had an inverter. When the light goes off, it kicks in immediately, but it's not built to last 24 hours, not built to take these ins and outs every day for weeks. It's very easy to fall in love with the Dominican Republic's music and culture and people. They're just wonderful. But this governance problem is real. It's an example of the things that you need to think about when you're moving to a destination or when you're considering visiting, is not just your own privilege and comfort, but also the discomfort of locals and the system that is governing. And so if you're serious about calling a country home, or if you are a conscious traveler, you need to pay attention to systemic issues and know about them anyway, out of respect for the local population and to understand your privilege. Because even if as a resident, you may not be affected on day one or day two or week one or week two, if the protests continue, shut down the streets and the blackouts, that disrupt safety as well, the safety concerns that shape with how you move, all of that will affect you too, even from behind your gated home. Long-term relocation and visiting places isn't about ignoring the cracks. It's about seeing them clearly. It's about acknowledging them and deciding how you're going to live with them and how you're going to show up in a respectful way. Because a country is much more than a lifestyle upgrade. It's much more than fancy vacation. It's a social contract that we have with each other in the world. And when that contract breaks down, there's no expat enclave that will keep you fully insulated. And so we need to be more conscious. The Dominican Republic has incredible potential. Its people are resilient. No country can sustain growth if the electricity constantly fails and there's no resolution. If the voices of people are ignored, it just doesn't work. This is a warning about deepening inequality under the surface. It's about privilege and how that counters against what local people are living, and about what happens when governments prioritize their elitist investments over substance and the quality of life of the everyday Dominican. And for travelers, like I said, or investors or future residents, the lesson is very simple here. Don't just look at the shiny brochures and the shiny videos or the numbers that promise you that this country is on the up. Pay attention to the signals, pay attention to the governance, pay attention to the cracks in the system, because they will reveal the truth of how a country is really doing, and it will reveal the truth of whether or not you're willing to deal with it and stay with that for the long term. Thank you for listening, guys. If you're in the DR and you're facing a blackout, consistent blackout over these past 2 weeks, solidarity with you guys. Let me know where you are and what you're dealing with. Everyone, if you want more conscious takes on destinations, whether you're visiting or relocating and want to do it in a conscious way, subscribe here on Tourism Lens, where we go way beyond the surface for real talk on places around the world and our responsibility in them. Bye, guys. See you next time.